With Geraldo Rivera, longtime journalist, Fox veteran, legendary TV personality, someone who has been around and dealt with Donald Trump in many capacities. Welcome back.
Hi, buddy. Thank you. Nice to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. What do you see going into the new year? There has been a lot of energy and a lot of tension through the election. That's over. We come back. President-elect Trump has picked his team. They've picked the speaker, and Hakeem Jeffries. And the counterpoint says he doesn't seem shook. It's a close margin in the House. They will need Republican unity to get much of anything done. Your thoughts on where we're headed into January 20?
Well, it's a big question, Ari, but I think that, first of all, let me say that the reality of governing and passing laws is going to meet the harshness of the divided government in Washington. I mean, it is, to me, inconceivable to think that the president's going to get tax policy, he's going to get immigration, he's going to get energy, all done, tariffs, all done in one massive bill. They barely got the Speaker of the House elected the other day, and that was only because President Trump personally lobbied a half a dozen or 8 holdouts and said,
I'll let you finish, but it's interesting because you've been around and covered and dealt with Donald Trump. You're saying that as a matter of legislative planning, if this were a restaurant, his eyes might be bigger than his stomach.
I definitely believe that is the case. I'm not an expert in how Washington operates, other than the fact that I've been in the news business for half a century. I've never seen them able to really do big stuff unless they focus. Obamacare, as broad as it was about one thing. So here's a president who has promised on day one to change the world. But the world is going to resist being changed. Denmark is not going to want to yield Greenland. Panama is not going to want to give up the canal. Canada will not give up its sovereignty. People who are going to be paying shopkeepers who will now have to sell more expensive Chinese goods because of tariffs will not want to sit idly by, and they'll be demanding their own tax breaks. The dreamers, the immigration, it is an impossibly complex and very, very difficult machine Washington is. And the president, for all his bravado and all his bluster and his huge charisma, I don't in any way cut him short. But it's not going to be enough, it seems to me, to get some of these real stick in the muds to move in his direction when they see the world in totally different ways.
Yeah. And as you say, that's where the governing comes in. If you had a larger mandate, if you had a big Reagan lead, if you had a 30-seat majority in the House, that'd be different. And you kind of have to price it out based on what you have. I want to show you this reporting that the Trump transition team wants to do what they call a, quote, D.C. area showcase immigration raid in the first days, that this would be a, quote, high-profile raid targeting undocumented immigrants in the initial days. The raid could target immigrants allegedly living in the U.S. illegally at a workplace in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm curious what you think of this, because I've covered this. I've had Stephen Miller on the show. I think we can stipulate that there are debates about immigration in this country, and undocumented immigration has been rising. And there's a question about how to deal with that in a holistic way that is humane but protects national security. I'm curious what you think of something that's already being billed as a kind of, quote, show or advertisement. Isn't this issue more important than making a D.C. show for the D.C., I guess, media market?
I'm an old man now. I've been a boxer all my life. I've given it up because of my frailty. But I would come back to punch Stephen Miller in the nose because he is the most hideous in terms of his policy. I don't know the guy personally, but in terms of his policy, he is absolutely draconian. He is the definition of it. He doesn't want to resolve the issue. He wants to scapegoat certain people that will, in his mind, it will resound favorably to President Trump. I think that this is a horrible idea. A showcase of raids in the D.C. area. You know what that's going to do? It will heighten uncertainty in the immigration among immigrants. It will infuriate the Democrats. It will motivate that base. It will absolutely garner him no additional points. He needs now to use this bluster and use this moment and use these first 100 days to make deals. He prides himself on being a deal maker. He did in his other life when I knew him better.
Yeah.
Now make a deal.
I got something else to show you.
Okay.
And I'll say I appreciate I know your passion on the issue. We on the beat oppose all types of violence. You might be using some political rhetoric. I know that the president-elect uses some rhetoric sometimes, but I did have to say that. I'm going to take us now beyond American politics, Geraldo, because I've told you this before. It's interesting to connect with you given the news career you've had. And I want to show you something we dug up tonight as we let's look beyond our American divisions for a second. This is all the way back of you. You mentioned, you said the years you've lived. This is from 1977. Take a look.
Good morning and welcome to Havana Harbor, where a Soviet freighter, one of many, lies anchored, waiting its turn to come into this busy port. It's symbolic, I think, that just a couple of 100 yards away from that anchored Russian ship is this boarded up and melancholy-looking building. This, ladies and gentlemen, used to be the American Embassy. When you look around, the thing that occurs to you is, it's funny, they don't look like communists.
There you were reporting in Castro's Cuba, meeting with Fidel Castro, and I have a little more, and then we'll get your thoughts on this. This is your very newsworthy interview. Castro used his style. He was controversial for many reasons, but he had his own leadership style, a sort of joking charisma, as well as the interview he did with ABC's Barbara Walters. Take a look.
You make me work as much as she made me work. I wouldn't have a long life, not a good job. She made me work for about 3 days. And then I was paid nothing, absolutely nothing. And then Nixon is paid $1 million, Obama is paid dollars.
Actually, Castro wasn't precisely correct. In a flagrant act of checkbook journalism, ABC did in fact pay him. He received a $20 fee for the day he drove Barbara around in his Jeep.
Your reflections, I don't know how much you remember that trip, that era in foreign policy and the Cold War and the type of reporting you were doing.
I loved Barbara Walters. We became friends as soon as we were paired together at ABC in the 1970s. I think it was at the Son of Sam was the first story we did together. I loved her whole life. We had a wonderful friendship. I jumped out of her birthday cake for her 75th birthday, topless. I noticed I did a few topless stints just there for Good Morning America. Castro was one of the greats, all-time greats. And I know a lot of people hated him as he came to symbolize the, communism and its grip on Latin America and, anti-Americanism and all the rest, defeating our friends at the Bay of Pigs and so forth. But he was like Trump. And I don't mean that politically, of course not, but in terms of larger than life, in terms of that kind of ability to project and to control a room and to make people listen where they might ordinarily not listen. So I enjoyed that enormously. What he said in the interview was he wanted some talks with the United States, but he really didn't. He prospered personally, and I don't mean financially, but he prospered in terms of his image and all the rest of it by his opposition to the United States and by cracking the hold the United States had on Latin America. But he was an historic figure in many, many ways. And it was a wonderful experience for me. I was on at 8:15 every morning on Good Morning America for 10 years, 10 years. And I was someplace else every week, and it was a wonderful growing experience for me, and to be representing a network and to be with Barbara. We also did the Panama Canal together. That period, the 70s, where Latin America really was fraught
back in the news,
with this issue. It was really a wonderful growing experience for me.
I'll make you a deal, Geraldo. You keep coming back and talking to us about the news of the day and some of the characters you've come to know. And we will sprinkle in some of the hits from the vault when we can. Appreciate seeing you, sir.